Get them out, get them out, get them out. All right, we are live, or live for me at least. Welcome to Thursday morning, where we are getting the one ugly, beautiful bill passed through the House potentially. Right now, as of last night, there was a group of Republicans who have galvanized together and said they're not going to move forward with this. However, as of right now, this morning, 10:30 in the morning, it is being put up on the floor of the House for vote. So that is happening right now as we're talking. So by the time this gets published, I should have an update later today about whether or not this gets passed. But right now, I wanted to call out a few things on the ugly, beautiful bill. Right now, Speaker Johnson might not have enough votes to move forward. This was as of last night. And the reason why this is important is the people who said they would not vote for the bill, specifically Tom Massie. Massie said he had a voting block of 10 Republican members who are no votes on the Senate's reconciliation bill. The members of the House Freedom Caucus were also upset and added that the Senate pulled out all the good stuff. Chip Roy chipped in on that. Chip Roy. And he basically pointed out that all the good stuff were yanked out of the Senate's bill. And it was by that horrible political hack of the parliamentarian. Can't remember her name. McConnell of some sort. Not McConnell. What's interesting about this is, as of publishing right now, Massie has folded along with his 8 of the 9 that he supposedly had. What this means is, what was Massie given? Because Massie, I've always said, is a man of principle. He doesn't sign on to the Israeli Epoch lobbying group. He will vote on things that are absolutely BS, but if you look at it from a purely principled standpoint, and if you have no context behind it, where you're essentially a child and looking at things in black and white, then yeah, it makes sense. And fine, if he wants to vote like that and be a child and not delve into the minutia of right and wrong and where you can fight back in some respects, so be it. At least I can respect that. That's a principled approach. However, he is now folded. So for all of his bluster and all of his claiming that he is a principled person and is voting on libertarian standards, what happened here, Massie? I look forward to seeing it over the next days and weeks unfolding of why these 8 and Massie have now folded. What is in the bill? So right now, there are some critical changes that are coming out in Medicaid, and these changes are going to be fantastic. They're going to lower the cost significantly of what we're currently paying out in Medicaid. How that is going to be changed: right now, there are 72 million people on Medicaid, counting the illegals. And the cost has grown rapidly. It has more than doubled in the last 10 years, which is insane. What is now changing in the big, beautiful bill, the current iteration on the House floor? Right now, is previously, this is wrong. It says this, so an annual income verification is currently required. That is not true. A statement of saying, yeah, this is my income is required, not verification. The publisher of this article was very nuanced in their wording, and they're making it inaccurate. The current setup of Medicaid is that you just have to do a written statement saying, this is my income verification. In other words, if you're impoverished and you've got no job right now, you show that you don't have a job, then that's all you do going forward. Even if you get a job, there's no validation that you have that job or what your validation of the income is. That's the bad part in the current setup. That's why there's so many people who are on Medicaid right now, as their incomes have grown to the point where they're no longer impoverished and they're getting Medicaid, which they should be off of. And that's what this is circumventing. So now, under the new bill, every 6 months, this includes a proof of citizenship that there will be income validation verification, not just a written statement where it says, yep, I'm not making anything. No, you have to prove it. There are some 1.4 million people who are not legal residents of the United States who are currently enrolled in Medicaid. The bill requires citizenship verification and more frequent eligibility checks in order to ensure illegal immigrants and ineligible beneficiaries are not able to receive Medicaid. Yup. This is also a good one. community engagement requirements. In order to maintain eligibility, Medicaid enrollees would be required to spend 20 hours per week in employment, educational activities, training, or community service. You got to be doing something, not sitting on your bum. If I'm paying for you to sit on your bum, you better be doing something good for the community. This provision applies to adults who are not disabled and are not responsible for caring for children or other dependents. If you've got a working back and you're not having to care for kids, you should be doing something to better your community. Pick up some trash, clean off some graffiti, quit doing fatiguing things. About 90% of Republicans and more than half of Democrats favor these provisions in the bill, according to Health Policy Think Tank, which is pretty common sense. If you have the ability to do something, you should be doing it instead of sitting on your bum. The point of this, the Democrats are going nuts over the initial provision that you must have income validation because they are now claiming that 11 million people will be kicked off of Medicaid. Did you hear that? They're saying that 11 million people will now be pulled off the rolls because their incomes did increase or they did get jobs and therefore they will no longer qualify. And they're acting like this is a bad thing. Again, it makes you wonder why they're wanting all these people in the Medicaid rolls. Who's paying them? DOJ has confirmed about 1.3 million illegals are on the Medicaid rolls. Speaking of Medicaid and why it's so important that we crack down on the fraud and the abuse and the waste on Medicaid, Trump's DOJ exposes $14 billion in Medicare and Medicaid fraud. DOJ announced the results of an annual healthcare fraud takedown this week in which they charged 324 defendants with $14.6 billion of medical fraud. Defendants include 96 licensed medical professionals in 50 federal districts and 12 states, general's attorney's office across the U.S. 12 states, a multi-state fraud. The busted fraud schemes involved identity theft, fraudulent wound care, prescription opioid trafficking, and fake telemedicine claims. One's transnational crime organization alone was responsible for $10.6 billion of the $14.6 billion in total fraud. A network of foreign individuals strategically bought dozens of medical supply companies located across the U.S., then used stolen identities of over 1 million Americans to submit fraudulent Medicare claims for urinary catheters and other durable medical equipment. In another case, foreign individuals relied on AI to carry out identity theft. The defendants allegedly used artificial intelligence to create fake recordings of Medicare beneficiaries purportedly consenting to receive certain products, the DOJ says. The recordings were then sold to laboratories and durable medical equipment companies, which use this unlawfully obtained and fraudulently generated data to submit false claims to Medicare. What in the world? And again, you've got Dems going livid where they're wanting us to stop checking into Medicare, stop checking into Medicaid, and stop allowing illegals to be on the doles of our paychecks. This is Mally signing off.